Good afternoon. Today, our guest is Mr. Peter Carlson, a psychologist who is going to tell us more about the concept of lifelong learning. Hello, Mr. Carlson, and welcome.
Good afternoon. I'm glad you invited me to your show. It has always been a pleasure to be with you and your listeners. Well, the concept of lifelong learning is a new one, although it appeared in 1971 when it was introduced in Denmark. A lot of people don't know anything about this. Actually, we all think that when we finish school, we finish our learning process, but it isn't like that. This kind of learning means you learn all your life. It doesn't have to have anything with classrooms or any institutions. It can happen at different places, at your work or at home or in different situations. Lifelong learning is flexible, diverse, and available. I will now give you some examples to get a better picture of this. The computer is a very important tool now, but several decades ago, very few people had one. So all the people who use computers at work had to learn to use them at some point in their lives. Some of them learned this in their 40s or 50s, and it was pretty much after their formal education was over. And technology constantly develops, which means we will have to learn in the future. Some people also went to live abroad for different reasons. They went to countries where cultures are much different from their culture, and they had to learn to live and work in such cultures. If there were people of different origins in those countries, then they had to learn to live together and respect each other. Now you can see that we all learn every day, and sometimes we are not aware of that. Also, lifelong learning can happen in classrooms or online if someone starts a course or continues their studies later in life. The most important thing is that we should never stop learning. "I'm still learning," said Michelangelo, and I hope your listeners have learned something from me today.
Of course they have. Thank you very much, Mr. Carlson. And now...
Hi, my name is Amita. I live in a small village in India. Our village is very poor and there is nothing much to do. But there is one thing I adore, to go to school. My teacher is Ms. Aisha Patel. She's a nice person and a great teacher. She speaks perfect English and her classes are fantastic. I have learned a lot from her. I have been attending her classes for almost 2 years now, and I am glad I have got this chance. I can say I am more than happy I am in her class. You know, in ancient India, people who wanted to be educated went to a teacher's house and they asked him to teach them. If the teacher, called Guru, accepted a student, then he stayed at the Guru's house, helped him with all the work, and had to do everything the Guru told him to do. The student learned a lot about life and nature. This made the ties between the student and the Guru very strong. The student stayed with the Guru for many years until he completed his education. My Guru, actually my idol, is Ms. Patel. She is my inspiration, and thanks to her, I have entered the world of knowledge and science. I hope one day I will be a teacher too.
Two holidays are very popular in the Balkans. The first is the International Women's Day, which is celebrated on March 8th. The first is the International Women's Day, which is celebrated on March the 8th, and the International Workers' Day, which is celebrated on May the 1st. People usually work on March the 8th, but they always have a day off on May the 1st. These two dates were chosen to remember people who fought and even died for the rights we enjoy today. Women's Day is celebrated in different ways. In the Balkans, the custom is to buy presents for important women in a person's life. This can be someone's mother, grandmother, wife, teacher, boss, colleague, etc. The gift can be big or small. It depends on the closeness of the two people or the importance of the gift. On this day, people usually buy women flowers, candy, perfumes, books, scarves, or jewelry. On this day, stores are filled with gifts for women, and everyone can find a little something for their loved one. The purpose of this day is not the gifts, but to remind people about the women's movement and the rights of women all over the world. The celebration of May the 1st is different. On this day, people do not buy gifts. They celebrate this holiday with a barbecue or picnic. In big cities, the custom is to spend the day in one of the parks or to make a barbecue in a summer house, and in the country, People celebrate it in the mountains, by rivers and streams, in the forests, and on meadows. It is important to invite your friends and to have a good time. On this day, people can celebrate work by not doing anything but having fun. Children love to spend a day in nature with their parents, and this is a nice opportunity to tell them about the history of the workers' movement and workers' rights, but not many parents do this.
The Serbian tradition on Christmas is different from other European traditions. In the past, on Christmas Day, all the members of the family had a task to complete. The host went out to the forest to prepare a special kind of wood for the home. He prepared an oak log, which he brought into the house on Christmas Eve. While he was outside, the hostess was preparing the Christmas dinner for the evening, and the children were helping her prepare the house for the celebration. They put some straw on the floor and some walnuts under the table. But the family usually buys the oak twigs at a local market and brings them home together with the straw and walnuts. Since on Christmas Eve the Christmas fast is still in place, the family eats a special unleavened loaf of bread for dinner, along with some fish, cooked beans and sour cabbage. On Christmas Day, the family goes to the local church and attends the morning liturgy. People traditionally greet their family, friends and neighbors with "Christ is born," and to this, a person should reply with "Truly, he is born."
Sarajevo is the capital of Bosnia and Herzegovina and also its largest city. Its population counts around 370,000 people. Sarajevo is in the very center of the Balkans, in the heart of southeastern Europe. It is a beautiful city that lies among magnificent mountains that belong to the Dinaric Alps. It is never extremely hot in Sarajevo because the cool air from the mountains makes the climate pleasant during all the seasons of the year. Sarajevo also has one small river, the Miljacka. The people of Sarajevo love it and take long walks along its banks. There is even a little beach on the Miljacka, and some people like to swim in the river during the summer months. Sarajevo has very interesting architecture and important historic monuments from many different periods. It is one of the rare places in the world where within one block of buildings you can find a mosque, a synagogue, a Catholic church, and an Orthodox church. This shows how many different people and different religions there are in Sarajevo. But Sarajevo is not only famous for its history. It is also famous for modern events that attract many tourists. Firstly, Sarajevo is very famous for its winter sports, and many tourists from the region visit its beautiful mountains in winter. Secondly, Sarajevo has one of the world's most famous film festivals, the Sarajevo Film Festival, which is held in this city every summer. Many celebrities have visited this festival, and every year people can't wait to see who will visit the festival next time. Sarajevo is also famous for its music, its friendly people, its fog. If you love a mix of modern times and the distant past, Sarajevo is the right place for you. And don't forget the food. Sarajevo is world famous for its wonderful selections of sweet and savory dishes.
Philadelphia is a large city in the American state of Pennsylvania. It is the largest city in this state and the fifth largest city in the United States. It lies in the northeastern part of the United States on the confluence of two rivers. William Penn founded this city in 1682, and it was the capital of the Pennsylvania colony. In the past, it was also the country's capital. Today, the number of people who live in Philadelphia is about 1.5 million. Philadelphia is a place famous for its history. It was very important for the founding of the United States of America. This is the place where the American Constitution was signed. A constitution is a very important document that many countries have. The American Declaration of Independence, which is another very important document, was also signed here. Like Boston, Philadelphia played an important role in the American Revolution, and there are many important historic monuments there as well. The most famous building in Philadelphia is the Independence Hall building, which is a museum. Visitors from all over the United States come to visit it each year. Tickets for the tour are free, but you need to book them a few days before you arrive. As part of the Independence Hall tour, you also get to see the Liberty Bell, a bell that is a symbol of freedom and the city. Philadelphia is famous for its art and culture, and especially for its street art. It is also mentioned in many movies and songs. The story of Rocky, who was played by Sylvester Stallone, takes place in Philadelphia. There is a monument dedicated to Rocky next to the famous steps to the museum where Rocky went running. Philadelphia is also mentioned in many popular songs. One of the most famous ones is the song by the famous American singer Bruce Springsteen, and its name is The Streets of Philadelphia.
There are many different stories about King Arthur and his knights. There are also many stories about Guinevere, King Arthur's wife. In most stories, she is very beautiful and a daughter of a rich man. In these stories, Arthur fell in love with her as soon as he saw her. There is one interesting story about the meeting of King Arthur and Guinevere. When Arthur was young and unmarried, a beautiful woman came to his castle Camelot one night. She asked for help and asked Arthur to let her sleep in his castle. She was one of the most beautiful women Arthur had ever seen. The next morning she left Camelot, and the king was alone again. She didn't tell him her name. Arthur was unhappy because he couldn't forget the beautiful woman. He asked Merlin for help, but Merlin told him to be careful. Arthur sent his knights to find the woman, and they did. Her name was Guinevere. Everybody was happy, but Merlin was not. He knew that Guinevere was bad luck for the kingdom. Arthur and Guinevere soon married and lived happily for many years. But that happiness did not last long. In some stories, Guinevere fell in love with Arthur's nephew Mordred and rebelled against Arthur together with Mordred. In some stories, Guinevere brought Arthur's kingdom bad luck, just like Merlin had said.
Robin Hood is a 1973 American cartoon. It is based on the legend of Robin Hood, but uses animals instead of people. The story follows the adventures of Robin Hood, Little John, and the inhabitants of Nottingham who serve King Richard and fight against Prince John. King Richard is absent, and the country is now under Prince John. Robin Hood and Little John live in Sherwood Forest. They steal money from the rich and give it to the poor. People are poor because they have to pay huge taxes to Prince John and to his assistant, the Sheriff of Nottingham. But Robin has faithful friends who are always there for him. Little John, Friar Tuck, Will Scarlet, Alan a Dale, and Maid Marian. However, the sheriff manages to arrest Robin and Friar Tuck. He sentences them to death, but they both escape. Prince John is angry and tells the sheriff to arrest the poor inhabitants of Nottingham, which he does. Robin and Little John came to Prince John's castle and freed the prisoners. A huge battle began and everybody was in danger. But luckily, King Richard, who had just returned to England, stopped the battle. He arrested Prince John and rewarded Robin. Robin married Maid Marian, and they lived happily ever after. Hello, my name is Stevan, and I live in the city of Vicenza, which is a beautiful city, especially in spring and fall. I wasn't born in Italy. My family came here 10 years ago. My parents are from the Republic of Srpska. My mom is from Bijeljina, and my dad is from Banja Luka. I also have twin sisters, but they don't live with us. They're 20, and they are both at university in Milan, which is one of the most important Italian cities. We speak Serbian at home, and it was a bit difficult for me when I started school in Vicenza. However, my Italian is excellent now, but I still prefer my mother tongue. I have a lot of friends here, and we get on well with each other. They like to come to my place on weekends because my mom prepares traditional Serbian dishes which are fantastic. They're also interested in Serbian holidays and culture. I've shown them so many photos of the Republic of Srpska, they would like to visit it one day. One day, Mom came home and told me about a Serbian school in Vicenza. First, I was shocked. More school on Saturdays? No, but Mom insisted. I clearly remembered that first Saturday. When I opened the door, I saw the lovely face of Ms. Olivera Abadic, who is my teacher now. The school is called St. Sava Serbian School. We study Serbian grammar. Ms. Abadic also teaches us Serbian history, and she talks about famous Serbian writers, artists, and scientists. We have learned a lot of Serbian traditional songs, and we sing them when we celebrate Christmas or Easter, which we do in our classes. This is another way of promoting our culture and tradition. Ms. Abadic is very friendly and smart. I really like her classes. My classmates and I look forward to every Saturday because we know we will learn a lot and have some fun too. I'm glad we have a chance to keep our tradition and practice our language.
Free time or leisure time makes up an important part of any person's life. People choose to spend their free time in different ways. Some people have hobbies, others take up sports, some spend time with friends, while some choose to help other people and do something good for the place they live in. In the past, young people had many hobbies. They collected different things. They also founded clubs, met for poetry readings, or played various games. They spent more time outside and with their friends and were more active. They went for long walks, spent time in parks and in nature, had picnics or rode their bicycles. On weekends, young people went to the movies or to see theater plays. Certain things are still the same today. Some people still collect things. They still practice sports. They still spend time with their friends, but they have many other interests too. These new interests are all part of the virtual world. Today, you don't need to leave your house to make new friends. You can go online and find friends on the internet. You also don't need to leave your house to get the feeling that you have visited a country. You can watch a documentary about that country on TV. In fact, today, in modern times, you don't have to leave your house at all. You can work from home, shop from home, pay your bills from home. But how healthy are these new habits? Can the friends made online be the same as real friends? Can seeing something on a TV or computer screen be the same as seeing that in real life? People should find a balance between the real world and the virtual world. Before they buy a laptop and a mobile phone for their child, they must think about what that really means. Will the child be able to find its place in real life? Maybe the future will be better and more modern. But we mustn't forget that we are still people and that we have to live like people and not like robots.
When you ask children what their favorite book is, most of them will immediately say Harry Potter. The character has become famous worldwide thanks to a woman called Joanne Rowling, known to her readers as J.K. Rowling. Nowadays, she is among the richest women in Britain, but not long ago she was very poor, which is hard to believe. She was born in Yate, England in 1965, and as a child she wrote fantasy stories that she read to her sister Diane. One of her teachers, Steve Eddy, remembers Joanne as a good student and says she was exceptional at English. She wanted to study English at Oxford University, but she wasn't accepted, and she went to the University of Exeter to study French and classics. Her professor Martin Sorrell says Rowling was a good student who did what was necessary. Rowling says she actually did little work because she listened to popular rock and punk groups of the time. In 1986, she graduated from the University of Exeter and moved to London, where she started to work as a secretary and researcher at Amnesty International. Soon she went to Porto with her boyfriend, where she taught English. They got married and she gave birth to a girl called Jessica, but unfortunately the couple got divorced. She returned to the UK with the child. She was without a job and poor. That was the moment she started writing. Her popular character, Harry Potter, was born. In 1997, her first book was published. Its title was Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, or in some countries, like the USA, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. The book won many awards in 1997 and 1998, and it also sold excellently, which meant more and more money for the writer. So she kept on writing about Harry Potter. She has written 7 books about him, and she has also won many awards. In the meantime, she got married again, and now she has 2 daughters and 1 son. Today, she writes books for older readers, but they are not as popular as her Harry Potter series. J.K. Rowling is also a very generous person. She fights against poverty and she gives money to poor children. The popular British writer believes in magic, and the magic wand touched her life for sure.
This is Mr. Balaban's house and shop. Nothing has changed much. Good afternoon, dear neighbor.
Good afternoon, Dragon. I haven't seen you for a long time. These are your kids, aren't they?
Yes, they are. And my son needs you today.
Me? Who needs an old man these days?
Good afternoon, Mr. Balaban. I have some homework to do. Our teacher wants us to write about traditional crafts, and my dad thinks you're the right person for this.
Yes, I am. They still mention crafts in school? I thought these were completely forgotten.
No, Mr. Balaban, I will never forget those beautiful watches in your shop when I was in my high school.
Mom, please. We will ask about the watches later. So, what can you tell me about your job?
I finished my school in 1970. At first, I didn't want to be a watchmaker, but my parents insisted. Then we didn't go every day to school. We went on some days to the shops where we learned how to clean or repair watches. Soon after I finished my school, I started to work at one shop. This was the time when people wore watches and almost every house had a big clock on the wall. I opened my shop in 1980. I've been cleaning and repairing watches and clocks since then. Also, I've sold many of them so far.
What about your job today?
There were more watchmakers in the past, but there are still some of us. I adore my job. When people ask me why I'm still doing this, I always tell them because I love it. I cannot imagine doing anything else. Some of them want to know if I have any work to do. Although there are more and more digital watches and people use mobile phones instead of watches, I still have my old customers. You know, old men and women, they still wear watches and have those big clocks at home.
Thank you very much, Mr. Balaban.
Mr. Balaban, before we leave, I want to ask you if you still have those gorgeous ladies' watches you had many years ago. I just want to try some of them on.
Mom?
Ah, women.